Yeah, good afternoon to all of you. Today we will discuss the aspects of governance, then initiatives and innovations of good governance, then the promotions and incentives of good governance, and also the main drawbacks of the good governance. So, the main aim of good governance is to reach the unreached. That means the governance shall be visible, the government shall be invisible. That means minimum government and maximum governance. Minimum government and maximum governance. There are different aspects of governance working at different levels. Local governance, national governance, international governance. Mainly, the first one is the global governance. The global governance is nothing but the governance of more than one country by an organization is known as global governance. For example, we have the World Bank and then United Nations Organization, International Court of Justice. So these are the international organizations who are dealing with the global governance, international governance. And the second one is the corporate governance. Apart from having the global governance, the corporate governance. Corporate governance deals with a set of rules and processes wherein the corporate is regulated and controlled. The corporate body is totally regulated and controlled. So here it is protecting the interests of the suppliers on one side, the producers, the consumers, the shareholders, the government, the community, the public. So all the interests and the interest of all the stakeholders have to be protected by the corporate governance. And the third one, next one is the public governance. Public governance is nothing but the process of decision making and then the implementation. The decision making and implementation by the public, by the government is known as public governance. It all depends on different levels from Gram Panchayat to central government level. Then the private governance. The private governance is nothing but a private organization deals with a set of rules and processes which are affecting the life of the public at large. Affecting the life of the public at large. The best examples are industrial township and special economic zones. For example, if you take this industrial township, where the private sector involves a lot, then the private sector is constructing the houses, constructing the community buildings, and constructing the roads and other things. Whereas the public is going to live in that area. So the life of the public is being influenced by the private governance in that category. So that's known as the private governance. Then comes the environmental governance. So environment plays a crucial role in the balance, ecological balance. The main aim of environmental governance is nothing but the management of natural resources. It could be food, it could be air, it could be water, or it could be other environmental exogenous and endogenous factors. So this is nothing but the environmental governance. Then project governance. An organization which governs the exclusively one project is known as project governance, particularly project governance. That means a project includes proper planning, then implementation, then delivery. Planning, execution, delivery. All these three components are included in this project. For example, an IT project, information technology project. Who is considered to be the father of information technology? Information technology. Shannon is considered to be the father of IT, information technology. Shannon is considered to be the father of IT. So that's known as the project governance. Then e-governance, electronic governance. That means the capturing of information, storage of information, and then transmission of information through communication technology. Through communication technology is nothing but e-governance. E-governance, in e-governance, lots of mission mode projects have been included. Purely central government projects, state government projects, integrated approach projects. There are 4 different types of e-governance projects. One is government to citizen. Government to citizen. The service delivery from government to citizen is known as G2C, government to citizen. Second one is government to business. So business people will avail the benefits of the government, avail the benefits of the governments in order to perform the business operations. Then government to employee. So whatever the schemes, services that have been framed by government, so employee has to access all these benefits, schemes, and then other logistic measures. This is nothing but G2E. And then government to government, G2G. So one government is making a platform, information platform, that will be available to other government departments. That means other government departments will have an access with the one government department to procure the information, to procure the benefit. So that's known as G2G. So that is e-governance, electronic governance. Then internet governance. That means the provision of information, the transmission of information through internet, through purely internet, is known as internet governance. The father of internet is Vint Cerf. Vint Cerf is considered to be the father of internet. So most of the technology issues are being tackled nowadays through this internet. So that's why internet governance plays a crucial role in the administrative setup. Then participatory governance. The participatory governance, all stakeholders, particularly all population, shall be involved to access the information from the main government. So that is nothing but the participatory governance. Then meta governance. Meta means governance of governance is known as meta governance. Over and beyond, after. Meta governance. Why this concept meta governance? We have separate actors. For example, public, government, public body, private sector, civil society. So these are different actors. They are performing their roles and they are delivering their services independently. But we have noticed certain failures. In order to curb those failures, an interlinking mechanism is being developed. That is known as meta governance. Meta governance is nothing but an established principle to steer the governing totally, to steer the governing totally. It is known as meta governance. So meta governance, nothing but an interlinking mechanism, interlinking the government, the public body, the private sector, and then the civil society, so that all the loopholes have to be plugged properly, and then it is not a pure thing. Meta governance is not a pure concept. It has been arisen due to combinations. So it is nothing but the combination technology mechanism, that's known as meta governance. It is devolving and then decentralized concept. And then, so the next one is the IT governance, information technology. Already we have discussed at length about information technology. So nowadays information technology plays a predominant role, and then IoT, Internet of Things, also playing a predominant role in governance. Then good governance. So good governance also. So we have large number of projects in good governance. Nearly 60, more than 62 projects have been delivered by central government, state government, and then integrated approach mechanisms. So these are nothing but the aspects of governance. Aspects. In these aspects, the main aim is Niti Aayog has developed a concept known as strategy, the strategy to at a strategy at 75, strategy at 75 years of Indian independence, because 2022 India is going to complete 75 years after attaining the independence. So by 2022 our economy should touch the $5 trillion economy. So this is nothing but it consists of nearly 41 chapters. Out of 41 chapters, 7 chapters dealing with good governance, and then balanced regional development. That is a special program known as ADP, Aspirational Districts Program, Backward District Program, in order to maintain the balance, economic balance and growth, economic balance and growth. So this is nothing but aspects of governance. The second one is initiatives, innovations. There are lots many initiatives and innovations. For example, 73rd Amendment deals with the local self-government, rural local self-government. That means devolution of powers to local bodies, particularly Gram Panchayats, Mandal Parishads and Jilla Parishad. And then 74th Amendment, devolution of powers to urban local bodies, municipalities, Nagar Panchayats and then corporations. Then 89th Amendment, which have been divided into two bodies. One is the National Commission on Scheduled Caste and the National Commission on Scheduled Tribes. So in order to protect the interests and rights of these vulnerable population, National Commission on SCs, National Commission on STs have come into force. Then National Commission on Women Commission, National Minorities Commission, and then National Human Rights Commission, then Central Vigilance Commission, then administrative laws have come into picture. Lot of administrative laws, lot of civil service reforms have come into picture, and then the citizen charter have been brought into scene. Citizen charter is nothing but a Sevottam model, service the excellence, service excellence. That means a firm, the commitments made by an organization and then delivery in a time frame manner is nothing but citizen charter. That's known as Sevottam model. And then these and the grievance redressal mechanism in a time bound manner. And then comes this Domestic Violence Act. Then comes this for the tribals who are living in forest, recognition of Forest Rights Act, forest dwelling activities. Then right to education is also one of the most important acts, right to education, wherein 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 age group they have evolved a systematic approach of education. And then New Education Commission, and then Education Repository Data, and then National Higher Education Regulatory Authority. So these are the main components of right to education. A New Education Commission has been developed, and compulsory education up to 14 years of age. So these are the main components of right to education. Then right to information. So information has become a right. Instead of freedom, information has become right. That is RTI Act. And the Disaster Management Act. A paradigm shift has been noticed from reactive phase to proactive phase. That is nothing but Disaster Management Act. And then All India Service Rules have been developed. Value added tax has been developed. GST has been evolved, and National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, National Rural Health Mission, National Urban Health mission. And then e-governance plan has been developed, NEGP, e-governance plan. And then a firm act has been developed on voluntary organizations. And then Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, DARPG, has been developed. So these are some of the innovations and initiatives in nutshell. Then promotions and drawbacks. What are the promotions and incentives? So central government has given lots of financial incentives to these states or districts who are implementing good governance in a most important and a beautiful manner. And a lot of awards have been introduced, good governance awards, e-governance awards, and then lot of regional conferences they are conducting annually, and then 6 months period, and then quarterly, lot of regional conferences, and then a lot of secretaries conference are also being conducted. And then they are publishing the books, particularly which the book deals with a lot of e-governance and good governance schemes and projects. And then the governance knowledge centers, DARPG, Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievance, they have developed the GKCs, that means governance knowledge centers. The digital repository centers have been developed, introducing all types of schemes and then e-governance schemes. And then the management in government they have introduced particularly. So what are the management techniques to influence the administration in a most effective and efficient manner? And they are publishing the documentary films, and they are publishing the journals also, particularly civil service news, which are useful to all civil servants, both retired and also service. So these are some of the promotions. At the same time, some of the drawbacks are also have been noticed. One is the attitude. In English, one adage is there, it is the attitude, not the aptitude, which will increase the altitude. Attitudinal change has to be ensured for all the civil servants. Attitude is the most important thing. The attitude must be positive thinking manner. And then lack of quality in implementation. Central government is evolving lots many schemes, welfare schemes, more than 70-80 schemes they have introduced, and all schemes we have to ensure the quality, whether all schemes are touching the cutting edge level or needy people or not. So that's the quality management, second one. The third one is red tapeism. Abnormal delay has been noticed in the implementation due to large number of hierarchical positions. So that has to be thought of, red tapeism, how to control. So that is also one of the drawbacks of this good governance. And then the low levels of awareness on the rights of the people, human rights, social rights, economic rights, SC/ST rights, vulnerable people rights. So low level of awareness has been noticed in the implementation. And then ineffective implementation of so many schemes and then rules and then acts. So that's how a proper there are three types of people in the world. Some work with only one H, and some work with, that is one H means head only, and some work with two H, head and hand, and only a certain group of people work with three H, head, hand and heart. Every issue has to be dealt with lot of concern, then only results will be expected. Plans are plenty, results of empty is not our criteria. Plans are plenty, results are umpteen. So that's our good governance criteria. So thank you very much. In the next part, we will discuss about the different forms of government. Thank you.